All right, guys, there she is, the new setup. 2 years later, I did a review of this kayak when I first bought it 2 years ago in 2019, and it served me really well during the first KEF season. And I've since made some upgrades. Now, I'm pretty much done beyond two things, and we'll talk about this later, but I wanted to go over exactly how they have the kayak set up now and all the different features I've added to it and kind of where I have them so that you kind of get an idea of how everything's set up, how everything works when I'm out in the water. For those people who are looking to upgrade or set up their kayak, this is an option. Okay, so we'll start at the front and we'll work our way back. So at the front, the only thing that I've really added are just these green and red nav lights for when I'm running the motor, which I do have a motor on it now. And they just strap on, and I just have them strapped here, so when I don't need them, I take them off. That should be more than enough when I'm navigating when it's a little bit dark. Other than that, I still use the dry hatch up here for holding my cooler and holding wet weather gear. So my bibs are in there, my coat is in there. I also have a jacket in there in case it gets cold, because it does get cold here in Florida. I had to get this thing licensed and registered, so that was a fight with the DMV, but we got it done. So we'll work our way down this side. First thing I want to let you know that I added was this Roto Grip. There's a screw portion here on the top of your Propel drive, and I added the Roto Grip so I can have my net kind of sit on it, kind of long ways. That helps out when I'm actually fishing or just kind of moving around when fishing. The net will kind of sit up here, and if I need to grab it real quick, I don't have to turn around, and that helps out a lot, especially if I'm stationary fishing. I'm not trying to swing around and grab the net. I've lost a couple fish like that early on. Don't want to do that anymore. Propel drive's still the same, there's no updates to that. I did end up having to downgrade my unit here. I had one that, when I rolled my kayak in December, I lost it. So I have a Lawrence Hook 7 HDI, so it doesn't have side scan, but it does have down scan. It has the Navionics maps, which is one of the things I really wanted. And it works pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. Now, I have it on a Yak Attack mount, and I have it pretty far forward so I can see it at all times. And if I need to, the nice thing is this will tilt, so I can see it while I'm standing up if I need it. The transducer is mounted to a switchblade arm from Yak Attack as well, and it's also mounted to a Yak Attack cell block. So that way I have access to the battery, which is on the inside here, and it's just a cheap, I think it's like a $30 12 volt acid battery. All the wires are wrapped up on the side. The excess wires that go into the head unit here, which I don't have hooked up right now, I typically just wrap around here, because I may change the setup on this, I'm not sure. I'm thinking about moving the cell block into the hull and then just running the wires out so I can kind of free up some space here, because I'm starting to lose deck space. But the transducer is mounted a switchblade arm, which I can pull up and then just drop down as needed, which is really helpful, especially if I'm fishing shallow, which I do a lot. There's nothing that's really been added on that side besides those few things, which I've had them for a while. I did add a tether here, and this tether is specifically to run through the battery, and then also this part here I clasp around my dry bag, and I keep my tools in my dry bag, so if I need to, I can make adjustments with the Allen keys on any of this stuff up here. I have an Allen key set that I keep with it, and I also have a wrench and a pocket knife, as well as that's where I store my batteries for my electronics, for the GoPro, and it's where I store the wireless mic system that I'm using right now. Beyond that, I have another Rogue tether attached to the seat. I could attach it other places, this just seemed the most convenient right now, and my catchboard carbonate is back here. I would typically have it strapped in. I don't have it strapped in right now, but I would have it strapped in with the tie overs that hold in the crate as well. I use this rod holder right here to hold my net when traveling. I could hold up to 5 rods. I only have 4 right now, but I could hold up to 5. And if that were the case, then the net would probably sit underneath the seat, or I'd put it up front on that other Roto Grip and have it sit there while traveling. I do have a Visipole, and this is really helpful if I'm fishing in places like Fellsmere, but more importantly, it's got the backlight on it, which I need for navigation now, especially since I've got the motor on And if I'm traveling in low light conditions, obviously I want other boaters to be able to see me. I don't want any accidents. I want them to be aware that I'm there. And it works out pretty well. That's also from Yak Attack. Now, I ended up picking up this crate, which is from Yak Gadget, and they were one of the sponsors for the Kayak Anglers of Florida Trail Series. So they ended up, because I took second place in Okeechobee on the very first tournament. I ended up hanging on to that certificate for a little while, and ended up purchasing this this crate a little while after. It works pretty well. It stores stuff pretty well. It's got 3 pockets in here. I've got 3 hard boxes here, one for spinners and top water, and then the other one's got mostly crankbaits and other hard baits in it. And then I have all my swim baits here, or any type of fish bait there, and then all the worms and punch stuff is up here. I also have another hard box, a smaller one in there, that contains all of my hooks, weights, things like that. The biggest addition, and probably the most expensive one, considering the majority of the stuff that you see on here, I either won money to buy. This one was just kind of a one-off purchase. I picked up a Torqeedo. I'd been discussing putting a motor on this for a while, just because some of the places I fish, there's such long runs. We're talking about 4 or 5 mile runs at a time to get to fishing spots. That makes it really hard, even if you do have a good pedal drive. So this was picked up. I want to be a little bit more competitive. I want to not feel like I'm going to die at the end of a fishing day when I've made super long runs, especially if I got to fish 2 or 3 days in a row. So I picked up a Torqeedo, and we ended up having to make a custom mount for this because you can't really mount it. There's not enough room to mount it to the back of a Slayer Propel 10. So what we did with this is we took starboard, and my friend Dean helped me make this, and he's an ingenious craftsman, was a really good guitar tech, just a complete, he's a freak when it comes to this stuff. He has a really creative mind for solving these types of problems. So we took a piece of starboard, and I think the starboard was 24 by 48. I made it 1/2 inch thick because I wanted it to be able to, I didn't want it to break or anything. I wanted it to be pretty sturdy. We cut the starboard so that it fits the rail system on the back of the well here. Now, the biggest problem with this rail system is it's not 100% straight. It kind of curves a little bit, so we had to make a few adjustments, but it gets in there. This is by far the thing that takes me the longest to get set up, only because it takes a minute to get the Yak Attack screws and the wing nuts on there to hold it. So it slips right into the rail, tightens down. It's beautiful. I can get this kayak to run about 4.5 miles an hour, 5 if we got perfect conditions and the wind is with me. The haul itself isn't super fast, and that's part of it, but being able to consistently go 3 to 4 miles an hour is just super killer. And I went out and practiced for the championship, which is in 2 days. No problems whatsoever with it, no problems. And I was not tired when I got back to the ramp. And one of the things that I did do with this, and it's one of my complaints with the Torqeedo, is that you can see there's a real small cotter pin right here, and that's supposed to hold it in place when it's back the whole way. There's a hole here that it goes into. It doesn't really pin it down. And for being an expensive motor and German engineer, that kind of bugs me a bit that that's their solution. So what I ended up doing was taking some fishing line and tying it through on one of the holes here that's meant for the steering cables. I tied it through, went through the cotter pin, and then I went through and tied it out on the other side. And that keeps this cotter pin in place, so when it drops down and I lock it from the bottom, it will stay locked into position, and I'm not worried about it turning or whatever. And I can easily just use my rudder, and this just pushes me forward. So in case anybody's wondering further, these are the track screws from Yak Attack and their wing nuts that they sell on the website. We mounted this on the back of it. We also cut out a hole for the handle to sit. You can see the handle in there, and that kind of keeps it from moving back and forth. It really doesn't move at all once it's screwed down in, but that way I didn't have to get rid of the handle, and this wasn't sitting kind of, cockeyed. So that worked out pretty well. The other thing that we did is that we took screws from Home Depot that fit this mounting bracket, and we mounted them upside down. So they are bolts that have a round top on them, rather than the ones that come with the manufacturer's package. That way we could mount it upside down, the round ends would sit at the bottom. It wouldn't put any pressure or additional pressure on the back of the kayak. And if it did move, it wasn't going to rub a hole in it. So we ended up doing that upside down for that specific purpose. Again, in case anybody's wondering, this is how I have it mounted from the bottom. I believe they are the same size. I want to say they're 5/16 or 3/8. I don't exactly know, don't quote me on that. They're either the same size or one size smaller than the bolts that come with the manufacturer's packaging. But the nice thing about these is they're pushed up into the marine board and they're bolted on. It's not going on anywhere. And you can see the screws from Yak Attack here. So that's how I have this set up on the back, in case anybody's wondering. Battery, I'm working on getting it a little bit more secure. It's fairly heavy and it sits there pretty nice on top of the old rubber dry storage container. Thinking about either putting some Velcro on it or finding a way to strap it down. The kayak's pretty stable, so I haven't had any issues with it. I'm not as aggressive with trying to pull fish out of the hydrilla the way that I was when I rolled the kayak. In fact, I've switched a lot over. Most of my rods have braid on it now, so I can just cut through that. I added the Yak Attack boom arm for the camera. The camera will typically sit here, as you've seen in my previous videos. I have I think it's Cinco wireless mics is what they're called. $100, actually pretty good. I'm using it right now, and I can run a wireless mic on that. The receiver goes here, the transmitter sits on me in my vest. So I've added that to the rail system as well. Here's the dry bag. This is from NRS. We got this last year at the KEF Championship. And that'll just sit typically back behind the seat. I don't sit back that far. So that'll sit behind the seat, no problem. And I have it strapped with that kayak tether. Most of the cables and stuff, I typically will run underneath the tie-down straps, or the tie-down cord that holds the crate in place. And then I will run the cables and stuff through the back here, and then underneath the seat, and have them come out the side or sit under the seat so I can get to them pretty quick. Attached here is the throttle control, which one of the other things that bothers me about Torqeedo is they don't really give you a mount for it. You have to go get one or build one. So Yak Attack makes one, so we got a Yak Attack mount on there, and it sits there nice and high, and I can go forward or back. Works out really well. The key controls here where the magnet sits, and if I stand up, that automatically pops off, so I'm not worried about the motor running if I bump it while I'm standing up and fishing. Now, because I'm running out of rail space, what I had to do was get a Yak Attack double holder. There's a bunch of these out there. Like I think one is like the lunchbox paddle holder or something like that. There are quite a few of these. This one is just the one I could get the fastest, and they're pretty close to the same price. So I hung on to this, I picked this up so that I could put my paddle on the outside of the rail so that I would have room for the throttle to sit here and my paddle then to be out more. So, because I used to have the paddle sit on a Roto Grip on the rail, and it was just eating up too much space and needed that extra space. The nice thing about this is there are pull downs so that it will stay in there even if it does pop up, especially when I'm moving. What I do with the motor to keep it up is I've taken a carabiner and I've attached it to the pull cord that lifts the motor, and I'll wrap it around this. And then the nice thing is I can adjust this by moving this up or down to kind of pull the motor up further or leave it in. To pull the motor further up out of the water if I have to, like if I'm going over a hyacinth or something. But for the most part, this will just stay off while I'm running the motor, and I'll just let it sit underneath the seat. But it was an easy, quick fix, and this holds it in place pretty well. So that pretty much does it. That's all the upgrades. The only other thing I can think to upgrade is, at this point, is the fish finder, and I know which ones I want. It's just going to take a while to get them. They're going to be kind of expensive. I don't need to spend the money on it now. That's one of the things I can dream about and get sometime in the future. Thought about getting a power pole system too, but the anchor, which I don't have, it will typically sit up in here, and I'll just throw it over the edge. I do have the Yak Attack anchor lock here. I know a lot of the stuff is from Yak Attack. It's just I was able to get it from them quickly, or it was given to me as part of a prize package or something from KEF or whatever angler group I was fishing with at the time. So I'm pretty happy with this setup. It's giving me access to plenty of water. I mean, again, besides upgrading the fish finder, the only other thing I can think to upgrade is the kayak itself, which I do like the Slayer Maxes, but that's down the road. The last thing I want to mention is if you do happen to get a Torqeedo and do have something that has a center console drive like I do, you're going to want to leave that drive down. And it might be different on other kayaks, but specifically for the Native, I know if I don't leave that drive down, the water then, if I can show you, let me pull this out completely. The water will hit this back portion of the well here and will fill up the bottom of your kayak. How do I know? Because I did it. I took it out and I figured, well, you know, why run this in there when it's probably just slowing down the kayak a little bit? And then once the water started filling up and I saw where it was coming from, I'm like, oh, that's why everybody does this. Okay, so by the time that you see this, I'll be fishing the Kayak Anglers of Florida Championship. We'll probably be almost done with day one. Fishing the St. John's just like we did last year. Last year was rough. This year I have a game plan. I still think it's going to be rough. They've reduced the size to 10 inches. It'll be the last year that we have it there. We are going to be at Toho next year. So a little bit better of a fishery, in my opinion, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to put everything I have on that kayak to use and hopefully can come out with a decent bag and be competitive, unlike last year. We'll see what happens. But that's my setup. If you're interested in any of the stuff that I mentioned because you want to upgrade your kayak, put those things on your kayak, I'm going to link everything in the description down below so you can find it pretty easy. I'm not affiliated with any of those links. This channel's too small for that. So if you want to pick anything up, you're more than welcome to or not. But I'll link, most of the stuff will probably be linked through your Academy or Amazon. So you can just follow those links out if you want to go ahead and pick up any of those things that you saw. That being said, it's a hot one out there. I got to reload the car. I wanted to make sure everything was good for the championship. We're going to reload the car, get ready for that. You guys stay safe out there, and I'll catch you on the next one.